Stick to it and believe in your power.
If you saw my unboxing video, then you'll know that a reprint of the famed Gley Lancer was released at the end of June this year, exclusively in Japan. I was lucky enough to get a copy of it for myself, and I wanted to take a closer look at the game. Gley Lancer is one of those rare Genesis or Megadrive shoot-'em-ups that carries with it a high price tag. Now, it's not Musha expensive, but the original print will run you a good couple $100s. The gimmick in Gley Lancer is that you get to select how your options, or as they're called here, movers, work. We're given 7 different ways to control our movers. Normal has the movers rotate in the direction that your ship is moving, Reverse has them rotate the opposite way, Search homes in on targets, Multi has the movers rotate in opposite directions as you move side to side, Multi-R is the same but they rotate in the opposite direction, Shadow has the movers follow your movements but they can't shoot backwards, and Roll has them rotate around you. From my experience, Search is by far the best configuration, as there aren't ever many tough enemies on screen at once, and it's usually quite efficient at dispatching whatever enters the screen. Now let's talk about that level design. Now Gley Lancer is a hefty boy, having 11 stages in total. Each stage has its own unique identity, and that kind of helps it from making the game feel like it's overstaying its welcome. The stone block level and the ice level stand out in my mind in particular. Not only that, but each stage has its own theme, so Gley Lancer comes with an enormous soundtrack. And let me tell you, there's some quality stuff here. I wouldn't go as far to say it rivals Musha, but it's got its fair share of jams. We've got metal, synth, stuff that sounds like it's coming from a music box, and I swear the final boss sounds like it's straight out of Shining Force. And one cool note is that the easy mode ending and normal mode ending actually have different songs play. I personally prefer the easy mode ending. Go figure. Another aspect of the sound design that's truly remarkable is the sheer amount of digitized voices used. Sure, the Thunder Force series has some digitized voices too, but not nearly to the same extent. Not only does every weapon power-up have a voice clip, but every one of the 11 stages has its own voiceover intro. Interestingly, Gley Lancer also has more focus on story than most other shmups do. Unfortunately for us Japanese illiterate people, it's hard to tell what's going on, but it's cool that it has cutscenes after a couple levels. They're also skippable, so they don't hinder the gameplay at all. Speaking of gameplay, I typically prefer my shoot-'em-ups to have some sort of shield power-up to allow for mistakes, but Gley Lancer has no such thing. However, I don't think that this is a bad thing. Gley Lancer feels very well balanced, and attacks are usually telegraphed. However, there are a couple points, such as the first level and the battleship level, where some of the enemy bullets do blend into the background in the heat of the moment, and it kind of feels BS when your ship gets destroyed. I also hate this maze part. Everything feels like it's moving really slow, and if you mess up you have to start the whole maze over again, and everything just crawls at a snail's pace. But if you can get through it, it's fine. If you die, you do not continue forward. Instead, you're sent back to a checkpoint. Aside from the maze, this isn't much of an issue since there are multiple checkpoints per level and you're not really losing much progress if you die. The punishment for death feels very minimal. It's incredibly easy to get back to full power since the maximum power your ship can have is 2 movers following it. And since the ship's speed is controlled by the player, you don't have to worry about collecting speed power-ups just to have a chance at dodging enemy fire. However, this brings me to my biggest gripe with Gley Lancer. It's just too damn easy. I know a lot of people think that shoot-'em-up players are these elitists who wish that all games were hard and put chest on your hair, and while I don't think that, I do think that Gley Lancer's difficulty is a bit pathetic. And yeah, I know if you use a different mover style other than search, it'll make the game more difficult, and there are other difficulty levels, but playing it on default with search is just too easy. And even if you do pick a more difficult mover to use and you play on hard mode, there's still the issue of the boss battles. All of the boss battles in this game, no matter the configuration of your movers, are over in mere seconds. Even if you die to a boss, you will always be given at least one more mover before the boss battle, and the bosses just don't know how to take a punch. I can excuse this for the first boss battle of the game, but almost every single boss battle except for the final one is just like this. You shoot it for about 10 seconds and it's over. I can't think of a single other shoot 'em up that has such pathetic bosses. And it's really a shame. A lot of the boss designs are really cool. I only died to 3 of the bosses throughout this entire game. And remember, there's 11 stages! How can it be that bosses, the most exciting part of most space shooters, are so easily dispatched? It's really such a shame. I wanted to get a lot more out of this game. To give you a comparison, I've been playing Darius Gaiden on and off for almost 2 years now, and I only just 1cc'd the game a week ago. I was able to 1cc Gley Lancer in about 3 days in 4 or 5 attempts. However, with all that in mind, I think that actually makes Gley Lancer a really good game for getting people into the genre. The biggest thing going against it in this category is that the very first level is probably one of the toughest, just because it can be hard to see the debris flying at you in the background. Aside from that, the game is very approachable for newcomers, especially if you use the search mover. And if you want a harder challenge, just use a different mover. It's really unfortunate though how inaccessible this game is. Gley Lancer has more or less stayed inside of Japan with the exception of a brief outing on the Wii's Virtual Console. If it was easier to get your hands on, I would say that this is a must-play for those looking to get into the world of shmups. Now as for the condition of the physical reprint itself, I think it's of incredibly high quality. The case and manuals are exactly like old Megadrive cases and manuals, and the fact that the cartridge is made out of slightly translucent textured plastic makes it feel like they wanted you to know that this was a reprint, but that they still really cared about the quality of the physical cartridge. Now despite all that, I would still recommend emulating Gley Lancer if you think it looks fun, because unfortunately I can't recommend picking up a physical copy. There just isn't enough challenge to justify the price. I'm not upset that I got my physical reprint, but it does leave me wanting a little bit more from the gameplay. I'm Bofner, and I'll see you all next time!